the show, everybody. My name is Ty, and this is Total Disclosure. Boy, oh boy, do we have way too much to discuss tonight. But it's been a very, very interesting day, especially in the UFO world, I would say. Lots of not weird stuff coming out, but a lot of testimony. I don't even know if you'd call it testimony at this point. But people like John Ramirez, Ross Coulthart, and other stuff, Ben Hansen. It's just been day after day the past 3 days with a lot of UFO stuff in the news, and it's good to see, especially the stuff from today, which we will definitely discuss in depth. But we have so much. So I have Firefly UFOs in Wisconsin. UAP report stuff. Ross Coulthart on an episode about ancient civilizations, not ancient aliens. Missing 411 and the UFO connection, and then finally rounding out with John Ramirez about aliens potentially being revealed by 2027 openly. This is something we've heard from Lou Elizondo before. But tonight we're going to bring Cortex Zero and Tom in, and we're going to discuss all this stuff in a super serious, super intricate fashion.
What's up, man?
I've been being accused of lately that the show is becoming too silly. That's what
silly.
Too silly is the tone that we were getting, apparently. So I really want to get a little bit more serious, because again, this is a serious topic, at least to me. I don't know about how you view it as a whole thing.
Serious as a heart attack,
right? And I think this is the most important story of not just our lifetime, but I think of all time.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Yes, this is super important. I mean, obviously, there's room for humor. We should have a good time because that's what life is for. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty, like deep down inside, like I just want to rant and scream and tell these people, like, enough is enough. Like, give us the goods or we're going to take it.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting sick of like the suspension. It's the suspension between, because there's almost something about a low, like a fruit that you can't just quite grasp, right?
Yeah.
It's right there. You're just your fingertips are even grazing it as you reach, right? There's something that's more frustrating about that than not even being able to jump high enough to get close to it.
You're not lying about that. It's like,
right?
It's a tease is what it is.
So before all this 2017 New York Times article, before the 2020 basic, what I would say is admittance that we're not alone, or maybe, for the person who's a little bit more skeptical, by the 2020 admission that there are UFOs, whether they're homemade and on this planet, remained a mystery or a question in itself. But the Pentagon, and thus the American government, in 2020 basically said UFOs are a thing, and we've been studying them. And that's began this road of transparency with the public, and there was always this end game of disclosure. Now, where do you think we are on that timeline? Because with what John Ramirez, Lou Elizondo, the UAP report that we're still awaiting, there's all these things that are lining up, and it's up to us right now to kind of cross the dots.
Well, I can remember, I'll preface this by saying that I used to roam around on abovetopsecret.com, all their message boards, for years. And back in...
I thought that was just a Stephen Greer documentary.
No, it's a good site. There's a lot of cool people on there, actually. It was like where I used to go before I, then went to Reddit. And
do you go to the Black Vault, which is John Greenwald Jr.
Yes.
Listen, I talked to him, and I hate to sound like a little, like, kind of like girl about it. I talked to him like a couple months ago about coming on the show, and he said yes and how excited he was, and then just stopped answering me. And yeah, dude. So kind of left like a sour taste in my mouth with him. But I like him. But he's a hardcore skeptic.
Yeah, like, but he works like extraordinarily hard to go through these files and everything. I would even go as far as saying that he probably got caught up in something, man. You're probably not the only one hitting him up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I would wait until you have an actual conversation with him before we like pass too much judgment. I appreciate his work.
No,
I've found a lot
I
of
still like
interesting
him.
stuff through his website. But the roadmap we're on now, I remember saying in like 2013, I believe it was 2013, 2014 ish. I had made a post on there, and at the time I had called it slow drip or slow motion disclosure, and I was like, if they're gonna bring it out, this is how they're going to do it. They're going to take it step by step. They're going to acclimate all of us to it. They already had the movies doing that for the last God knows how many decades.
Right.
But this is the direction that we're going to head in. And I said, eventually they're going to be forced to do this. They're going to have to do it. So where we're at now, I didn't see coming in the short term. But once 2017 happened, now we're in a position where, based on the things that I've been hearing over the past few days, this is accelerating, and it appears, based on a couple different people who I trust, that and it's going to sound weird, and again, I'm not putting dates on anything myself. I'm not the one
Right.
saying that. Apparently, the people that are in the know are trying to get ahead of something. I don't know what that means. Again, I don't know if that's an event. I don't know if there's a discovery. I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea if there's a mothership, the size of Rhode Island headed our way. I have no idea. But Christopher Sharp had said that. Now Ramirez is saying very similar things. Like, it's
So
starting to line up.
Speaking of someone named Sharp, I don't know if I'm connecting this correctly, but didn't the government basically just invite some UFO journalists, or at least journalists who are privy to the UAP report or awaiting it heavily? Didn't they invite them to a little briefing about some of the things, like the UAP report being late, for instance, and what the Aero office has been doing, all that, etc. Because Greenwald Jr. just spoke about that on a different show, I believe.
Right.
So am I connecting the dot correctly there? Is it the same person?
Yeah, so I believe there was a roundtable discussion that I had caught wind of it when I was listening to a couple different podcasts today. And yes,
But think about
Christopher
that.
Sharp asked a question, and again, they're playing coy when they answer these people. Like, they're not going to give them anything, and they're very specific with their wording. Like Ramirez says, like, "Oh yeah, they may tell you the truth, but you have to get really, really specific with your questions."
Yeah.
The government likes to play games with verbiage.
Yeah, that's how you beat the FOIA system. And
Yeah.
that's how you beat, transparency, is by, making it so specific. It's like fucking with the genie, right? If you don't put the words like, get rid of all wars, and they would, Star Wars would be gone, right? Even though
Right.
that makes
Yes.
no sense.
Right.
And
It's like that.
in context, that's not what I meant, right?
I wish
But
for
you
infinite wishes, but then you get stuck in a loop of just wishing and never
just
actually getting to the answer. Like,
Right, exactly. So, and that's what that's what this feels like. The UFO topic in general. It feels like it's a slingshot, and you're constantly being batted back and forth between, this is fucking totally real, and that, fuck, I might have wasted 29 years of my life.
yeah, it does feel that way sometimes. But again, because of my personal experiences, the people I've talked to, the evidence I've reviewed, like, there's a presence here,
Oh, for sure.
and you know what I mean. Like, I'm so sure of it at this point. It's
Well, I want to talk. Let's open, because I really do want to keep it structured in a certain way.
for sure.
But let's start off. We just had our little banter about the whole topic bubble. But now, have you seen the Firefly UFOs by Ben Hansen? He revealed the case a couple days ago. And now I want to say this first. The video right away had me thinking conventional means. But there was some peculiarity to it.
Yes.
And, it looked, I don't know. It's not as big anymore. These, like, video cases like this, like maybe 5 to 10 years ago, this would have been breaking news on the internet or the UFO community. and this would have been talked about for weeks. But nowadays, again, it's the problem with being so close to the fruit, is you can almost taste it.
Yeah.
What did this look like to you? To me, it looked like those new lights that they have that can beam patterns in the sky and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's technology. Even Disney, like when you go to like Disney World or you go to like their Star Wars attraction, like they have
Let me
technology
find
to
the
do
video
things that
while you speak.
you didn't even know they had. However, the reason that I put like a to be continued on this particular piece of footage in this report is because I don't think Ben, knowing what I know of him, I don't think he would waste his time. You know what I mean? Like he seems to be able to discern and really figure out like, hey, this is probably man made. So if he took the time to put it out the way he did, there was obviously some characteristic about it that grabbed his attention.
Yeah, I
So
think it was the
yeah,
multiple aspect. I think it was the multiple witness aspect that
definitely.
he had two witnesses corroborate the same thing. Now that what that does is that tells us that something did in fact, like, it wasn't trickery of the eye, or it wasn't um uh like a
Hallucination
vision
or
problem, or hallucination.
yeah.
We can rule all that stuff out at that point, right?
Yep.
Because you have a corroboration of the lights passing, and you can sync them up to the point where the angles, even, it totally makes sense. But what doesn't make sense, or what doesn't make this video stand out, I think, is the fact that, again, I think the general public has been so spoiled with UFO videos that nothing is, unless it is clear as day with occupants, like you can see the shape of the fucking head, will really, that's what it's going to take to get us to sit up in our chairs. And that lends credence to the fact that the public is definitely being shapen.
Yes, that's a great
Right?
point. That's a
Crafted.
great point. Yes, 100%. They've been doing it for years, and I mean, I have seen so many examples of people saying, materials and bodies or nothing. Like they're done with footage. There's people I know who are done with footage. They're done with photographs. They're like, I don't care about any of that anymore. Like short of them landing and it being televised, and I can walk up and touch it. Like
I
give
don't want it
me
anymore.
biological
Yeah.
entities or a craft that you can show to all of us is operating in a way that is clearly not made of human hands. Like me, I'm not that way. I'm like, you know what, with what I know of photography and videography, you can show me something that would really grab my attention. I've seen some things recently on Twitter specifically that I was like, wow, that's actually a really intriguing photograph. I've had people send me things. I'm going to be covering that on my channel coming up soon. I have some things that are happening in the background there, but it's definitely worth
I get
looking
what you're
at.
saying. I think hardcore UFO, I almost said UFOologists.
UFOologists.
I think a lot of ufologists like us, we like the constant evidence, because it again, it's good for us, because it's not just content, but it's something to talk about and mull over until these big event days,
Yes.
and these
Yeah.
big event days are like the UAP report, or like today, where someone like John Ramirez or Richard Doty comes out and basically says something that we haven't heard before, and that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, today was interesting for sure. And I'm like at work, and it's funny because I was driving through, I kid you not, I was driving through the same intersection where I saw that UFO like 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And that's when he drops that information. And I'm like, stop it right now. I'm like, did this guy, because like, gotta be careful with saying stuff like that. But again, I look at his pedigree, I look at his background, I look at the people that say he's solid, and I'm like, all
he
right.
he to skip a couple things, he is, for some reason, like Richard Doty, right? Richard Doty, I feel like Richard is, like, there's something about him that doesn't quite feel right. And you want to believe everything he says, but something in your brain tells you that this guy might still be playing for the other team.
100%.
But John doesn't give me that feeling.
No,
John
not
never
not
gave
at
me
all.
that feeling.
I don't
Right.
get that feeling at all, and he seems very carefree about it, almost in the way that like Ross Coulthart is, or Bigelow, when they're just like,
Right.
oh, what if someone walks up to you and calls you crazy? I don't care. I know what
Right.
I know.
Like
You
they
know,
were
or
always
Gary
the
Nolan. I
types.
know what I
Yeah.
know.
Like they had like I feel like Doty, before all of it, before he like knew that there was something to cover up, just plays ball with whoever and whatever,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
But I think John was always this way, and just continued to be a good person,
Yeah,
right?
he was happy to get away from the intelligence community. Like what he said, the best day of his life is when he got his badge, and then the next best day of his life is when he turned it in.
Turned it in, yeah. And like, for instance, I rewatched Moment of Contact today. Shout out to James Fox, by the way.
Huge shout
I
out to James
fucking
Fox.
love James.
I do
And
too.
I was watching Moment of Contact just as my background noise while I kind of searched into some stuff, because I still have an open video that I thought was going to be done by now, which is not. It's been taking me, I've had to do reshoots like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's so bad.
I know what that's like.
But the Dudley Road video coming soon in
Coming
fucking
soon.
2029 with
This
the
summer.
aliens. Yeah. But well, shit, I forgot where I was going with that. That's how terrible that
James
was.
Fox, you rewatched
Oh.
Moment of Contact, yeah.
When he's talking to Military X at the end, when Military X is sharing that testimony, dude, something inside my body got like this real pit nervous feeling when James says to him, how does, like, how you're, maybe, like, if you're telling the truth, you have a level of confirmation that only a handful, maybe, of people on this planet have. How does that feel? And he basically, the military guy, Military X, because we really don't know his name, says back to him, and he says, you search for this your whole life. You scramble for the truth, but I lived it, and I would give it away just as quickly. So
That
what
is
we
very telling.
search for, what we fucking what we can't live without anymore. This guy lived, and it ruined his life. Which,
You know what? But that, again, I'll say this. It's not inherently the knowledge and uncovering the truth. It's what came of it at the hands of the Brazilian like government and military. There's different circumstances here, right? Like if you just find out and you just have that information, then obviously if it interferes with like say your like spiritual beliefs or anything like that, then that's one thing. But if it doesn't, you're fine. Now, if you have that knowledge and then certain organizations know you have that knowledge
fucking pressure.
and they start fucking with you, like they apparently did. Oh, hey, yeah, it's just Brazilian military here. How's your daughter doing? She's in first grade, right? Like
just
stuff like that.
reminding you that they know everything about you.
Which I think is disgusting, by the way. I just want to like put that out there since we're being watched by people right now. Like just me as a person, that really pisses me off, and it like throws shrapnel at my moral compass to think that someone had the gall to make that phone call to an innocent person who got caught up in a situation they didn't even ask for. Like, honestly, like, fuck you. Like, honestly, those are the people that's like, I think there should be leniency, and I think there should be a route for certain people to come forward and be given leniency. But those people right there that engaged in threats and putting pressure on people, like, I think they should be in jail. I do.
That's going to be a problem going forward.
It is a huge problem.
Right,
Huge.
because when you accuse, so this kind of links together. I'm actually kind of glad you said that. Not to go off on a real rant real quick, but just like a side rant. Now, in my honest opinion, we will never, ever know if A, Roswell happened, B, name any case up until 2004. All of that will, I guarantee, will be wiped clean by now you brought up how you think disclosure is happening. Well, I think it is a process as well, and it ends with two things. It ends with the James Webb Telescope finding something, and B, Avi Loeb and his public mission to recover a UFO actually succeeding. Then not they can jump on that narrative and say, we just found out with you guys. This is all new information to us. We had no idea. It was
That's what I'm afraid
unidentified.
of.
Right? That way they can avoid the questioning and prodding into the past cover up in order to be transparent in the future. And that has to be a deal we're willing to go with or not.
Well,
So
that's the thing. It's like if it gets us to where we need to be, I think if we go with that route, personally, certain questions may just answer themselves. Maybe they'll just leave it to us to put some of those dots together. But you know, why avoid talking about those things when most of the people involved are dead? You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like just spill the beans already. Like we're like if you took a poll right now on how many people probably believe that Roswell was indeed a craft that wasn't man-made, I'd say that percentage is steadily rising as the years go on.
yeah, I agree. I would have to agree with you actually, because I think people only know the name Roswell because of a UFO. Fuck, something's wrong with my mouth tonight. They only know the name Roswell because it's tied to that UFO crash, right?
Oh, 100%. Look at like the tourist attractions that they have in there. The
Their
little
McDonald's is
alien
a
and all
fucking
that.
UFO.
Which I love. I love
Which
that
is
they
amazing.
do stuff like that. But I'll say this though, I think your theory is potentially very accurate. But it's something that I've been worrying about and was hoping to God that they wouldn't do, where they would just bury the past and be like, oh,
Think about it.
we're just learning right along with you right now. And I'm just like, I really, really don't want them to do that. I want to know.
I know, but think about this.
Everything.
The U.S. government would basically have to admit to having taken part in criminal activity in order to tell the truth about UFOs. It's not going to happen. They will not admit that the government that they hold to the highest standard in the world could potentially be involved in such a conspiratorial fucking. I mean, think about it. If they admitted to shit, I mean, if they admitted to everything, if they spilled the beans on all of it,
yeah,
it would the evidence would be overwhelming, and people would literally have jobs that don't deserve it, right? We like the legacy jobs that how politics works.
Oh,
It's
of
the
course.
people that you
Dirty.
know. It's the people you know and the people your family knew. So there are still people today that have jobs because of what their grandfather did in covering up UFOs.
That's such a good point. There's this like trickle down effect.
Yeah, that's the problem we face is legacy and politicians and fucking and just a political climate.
Bloodlines even.
Backstabbing.
Look at look at the royal family in England. And again, I'm not shit talking them, but when you have lineage that has power, it tends to try its hardest to hang on to that power through the generations. Like they want to keep it in the family. And unfortunately, we may be facing some of that. However, I will say that this quote unquote whistleblower language in the NDAA, I feel as an optimist, that there's a good chance that's going to open up some doors where they're going to potentially be in a situation where they may have people come forward and they may, swing the bat at the ball for humanity, so to speak, and say, you know what, let's revise this language so that not only can they testify before Congress, but they should. This is what I've been thinking about for like the last week. They should set up like for the Good of All Humanity Act or something where it's like, listen, if this is something that the public needs to know, like, and we're able to prove it as truth, that if someone comes out with that information, that they can't necessarily be prosecuted in certain regards. Obviously we're talking like language that I couldn't write because I'm not a politician. But I feel
Well,
like
it's the
this
Sam's
is going to
point.
open doors, and like I had found out today too, I knew there were people lining up because I trust the people that say there are people lining up. There's 2 people that have said that. There's actually 3. I believe Ross Coulthard has mentioned it, Gary Nolan's mentioned it, and George Knapp. And like shout out to all 3 of them because
Yeah.
I like adore these guys.
Yep.
Well, apparently George Knapp was like, yeah, some of these people have already spoken before Congress, and he knows of 5 others.
I can tell you right
5.
now. Now to Sam's point and to Nick's point after that, you're right.
Yeah, he's right. He is right. For like I said, for lack of a
whistleblower-
better term.
Yeah, whistleblower isn't the correct word because a whistleblower is like a whistleblower is what's that guy's name? Edward Snowden, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
That is like leaking information for what he considered the betterment of the country, right?
Yes.
He did that against all odds. Like there was no going into Congress with that one. It was leaked to the media. That is whistleblowing, right?
Yes.
When you leak
yes.
to the media, you cannot. Now let's get this straight. Just because there's language in this NDAA that allows people to testify before Congress does not mean they'll, after the meeting with Congress, they're going to walk over to the NPC and the National Press Club and make a fucking announcement about it.
They're not allowed to. From what I understand, they can talk before Congress and violate their non-disclosure agreement, but it's just Congress. But then it's up to Congress what they want to do with it.
Therefore, not a whistleblower, right?
Right. We need a different term. It's just everybody knows it as a whistleblower at this point.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the way I look at it, it's like, yeah, it's still kind of a whistleblower because they're technically blowing the whistle to Congress, but it's like they're a testifier. You know what I mean? I guess that's a good term. UAP testifier.
Without saying who it is, I have a close friend in one of the largest ongoing cases in what you could consider history of UFOs.
I know who you're talking about.
Who I'm going to Congress with, or I'm not going to go inside with him, but who invited me on a journey to speak in front of Congress. So I know that they're lining people up to talk, and it's just who those people are. Like we know Ryan Graves was one of them because they did speak about that, and and we know a couple others, but what I want to see is people like Bob Lazar stepping into Congress.
Dude, I know. I'm surprised nobody's like mentioning that, but I'm like, he would be like the perfect candidate for this.
Wouldn't that
will
be
he be willing?
Would that not be the ultimate smoking gun? If Bob Lazar was seen walking into Congress to fucking clear this shit up,
I would. I'd get emotional almost.
Do you think that could be telling in the future? If like Jeremy and George are probably like, Bob, would you? I mean, this is the ultimate test right here.
He might be one of those 5 that Knapp mentioned.
Would you fucking testify in front of Congress? That would be the ultimate. Like, do you want us to believe you or not? Kind of, nudge.
And I think he would be willing because when he had gotten in trouble for his involvement with like a brothel, something stupid back in like the 90s, I believe it was. That was his chance right there, just like Corbell had mentioned in his documentary about Bob. Like, this was the time to come clean and basically like, just tell everybody, yeah, I was bullshitting, because it's like you're about to get into trouble. And he stuck to his guns and he kept the same story.
Yeah.
He was like, I am able to prove that the Office of Naval Intelligence, like he was on their payroll, or at least like and by the way, because I forgot to mention this, little side note, this right here hanging on the wall, this is a line drawing of the sport model that Bob Lazar drew himself, and it's signed by Bob. On my wall. I ordered it from his website.
But like I said, Bob is so it's so easy to believe him, and I think this would be the ultimate test.
Yes.
If putting Bob Lazar, the reason people know about Area 51, the reason people even know the UFO and Area 51 connection is because of Bob Lazar. It wasn't until 2000 and something, almost 25 years later, that the government would admit that Area 51 existed. Now,
which is hilarious.
By that time, everybody already knew it, saw it, and could describe it to you, but the government still had it, and people forget that.
I keep all of those things very front and center in my mind when it comes to Bob. And it's okay if you don't believe him, but I do. I know you do, but if there's anybody in the chat right now that's like, Bob, it's like, I understand. I respect all opinions on that. I just personally believe his story, and I believe that he comes off credible. But that's just me.
I've called MIT to see if I could go search through their archives.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, because I live not even 5 to I think I'm 8 minutes from one of the administration offices of MIT.
Oh wow.
So I asked if I could go through their archival stuff to see if I could. I didn't tell them necessarily why, and I got denied. But I would imagine to find something with his name on it.
Oh yeah.
Corroborate his story.
That stuff's long gone, my friend.
Yeah, MIT is one of those places that really wrinkles his story, because there's nothing that has come out. But moving on, the UAP report, in that conversation, the briefing or whatever took place between the United States government or at least the Aero office, the representative of Aero, Kirkpatrick, I believe is the name, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Dr. I don't know, something Kirkpatrick
or Kilpatrick.
One of those two. But
so many names.
Another representative held a briefing with multiple researchers, said this report, the UAP report, would be out by the new year. Now, or it'll be at least be submitted for public consumption by the new year. Now, do you think this is something that we could stick to, as hard fact, or do you think this is just a buy us some time kind of strategy?
Well, you would, if I was a betting man, I would say it's just, the buying time strategy. However, if we continue to hold Congress accountable and keep their feet to the fire, Congress will in turn do the same to them. And, in other countries, when, like Ross Coulthard said that if this was in front of Parliament in Australia and it was due on the 31st and it wasn't there, like, you're in contempt of Parliament. You know what I mean? Like, you have violated law. It was supposed to be turned in.
Right.
This is not an essay contest. This isn't homework. This was due. So
yeah.
I feel there's a good chance it'll be out before the year is out, because they have had plenty of time. It might be a whole mess, and I those of you in the chat and even you and I, let's not get our hopes up too high on that. Keep your minds focused on the NDAA and what we're hearing in the background as far as people coming forward and lining up. Don't worry about that fucking report anymore, because I feel like that's just going to be more of the same, maybe with a couple things added in that are like, that's interesting. Like, and we also need to start putting pressure on the United States Air Force, because they're just clammed shut, and they're not saying anything. They're not giving anything up. They're being difficult with Congress. Even Congress has made requests, and the Air Force was like, well, you didn't specifically say this. So it's kind of like, where are we going from here? The report, I don't think, and I could be wrong. That might blow our minds, right? That might tell us a lot. I doubt it. I think the report will be a slight improvement over the last one. But what we need to be really looking out for on the horizon, are the rumors that we're hearing with the whistleblowers. And also, because it's going to be coming out, I think, within the next year, Lou Elizondo's book might be huge. Like,
could be, yeah.
I was looking into that, and he's apparently going to say some stuff in that book that he hasn't been able to say yet.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he is a super source. Like, it's like a super source.
100%.
Just his background in general. And that's what I always said about Lou, is like, why don't more people like listen to this guy? Like at least hear it out, because like, even with guys like Stephen Greer, I don't believe everything that guy says, but I at least take the time to listen to him. And then I discern my own, like, I have my own direct apprehension, right? It's like when someone asks you the question 2 + 2, I could tell you it's 4, But until you do the math yourself and come to that conclusion that it is in fact 4, you know, that's the name of the game, right? Is
Greer
taking the
lived long
equation.
enough to become the villain.
Yeah,
You know, it's like you either die the hero, or it's like he started off strong. Like there are things that he did for the quote unquote disclosure movement that no one can take away from him at all. But I feel like in his older years that he has found a way to monetize it in such a way that was intoxicating, and he went with it. Does that mean he has falsified sightings and, you know, shooting flares out of planes? I've read some stories where he may have done that. I can't personally prove it. However, I still feel that the documentaries he released are accurate, that, you know, they contained good pertinent information. But it's embarrassing when you have the that, I forget what the name of it, what they called it, but Gary Nolan had
yeah,
the little skeleton.
that stuff is what holds it. Like,
You
that's
can't
what
just
breaks
call
it.
that an alien until it's looked at. You know what I mean? Like, as a
Yeah.
researcher myself, like, let's say I was part of the team that discovered that. I would go on my YouTube channel and be like, hey guys, we found something weird. We don't know what it is, but we're going to have Gary Nolan look at it. I'm not going to be like, this is an alien.
Right.
Now let's test it. That's like, those are the mistakes that he was making. But are they mistakes? Not for him, because he made God knows how much money off of it, only to find out, boom, it's not an alien. So it's stuff like that where it's like, I don't want to be that guy. I never want to be Stephen Greer. I never want to be in that position. And like the fact that his own lawyer kind of shut him down as far as his opinions on Lou, that should tell you something, because Danny Sheehan is both their lawyers. I don't know if you knew that. Sheehan
do.
represents Greer and Elizondo, and Sheehan has made statements that are kind of like, yeah, Team Elizondo. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's gotten into Greer. I think he's a very intelligent guy, real
Well,
smart.
I think he has I think with Greer, it's always him and CE5 versus the United States government. It's Greer makes it like if it was to be fair, Greer has like a very peaceful narrative, but
very
he
optimistic.
doesn't necessarily practice what he preaches, because he's always pitting himself against the United States government. He doesn't look or sound like an ally to them. Therefore, if it was up to people like him who would just continue to call the United States government a criminal organization, well, they're not going to play ball with you, because they're not going to admit you're right, because then that would have lasting and suffering consequences.
And this is why politics creates problems. You got to find middle ground. And so, just while I'm thinking of it, because we obviously do what we do, because I see Nick in the chat says, I still like Greer, but he's a grifter. You know, okay, like us researchers, we obviously, you know, we're in content creators, we make content, and it takes a lot of time to do that, but we also have to eat, right? Like, the one thing I'm going to do is share with you interesting information, just as he will. And, you know, our content's monetized, but you don't have to pay for it. You know, but it's like,
I grifted you tonight.
I don't think it's wrong to make money doing what we do. I think it's wrong to make money bullshitting people.
Yes.
When you want to share stories and you have ideas and you just want to have conversations, that's cool. But now if I go on my YouTube channel and instead of telling you a story that somebody else sent me, because I don't know how true that is, I'm just sharing it. If I go on there and start telling you about how I'm a reptilian overlord from Omicron Persei I8, like that's where that's where I draw the line. There is nothing wrong with making money, no matter who you are or what you're doing as far as a content creator is concerned. This just happens to be our niche, right? We're talking about UFOs. I talk about consciousness, afterlife, all that stuff. Stephen Greer is this is a totally different level, where he may have gone as far as charging people thousands of dollars to go on an excursion to watch fucking flares, convincing these people that they were having like the most beautiful experience of their life. Like, that's beat.
I read an article from a kid who like was super like infatuated with Dr. Greer and paid like the $3,000 that it for a weekend. It was like a weekend seminar basically, and he said, he went into it like with so much high hopes, and he had so much love for Dr. Greer, and it was very much like a little Pop-Tart situation where he was like overly obsessed with Dr. Greer, but then went on the excursion, if you will, and like just immediately had the joy slapped out of his mouth because everything was about Greer. Everything, like when he was doing his presentations, he was like boasting himself up, say, I've presented to the president, like
constantly.
He just said in person he didn't have that same feel anymore, and it felt more raw and disgusting. And then he said the CE5 and the meditation, like that was the best part about it, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. And he says,
Right.
that's not the part he was mad about. It was more like when they were doing these breakfasts and dinners, like Greer would be making speeches all about himself. Like it wasn't about the narrative anymore. It was about himself.
Oh, my alarm's
And that
going off.
becomes that's an issue.
Yeah, that is a problem. Here, let me
like imagine that.
shut
It's,
my camera
it's
off
the
for a
whole
second while I change
it's the whole
this.
like meeting your idols thing.
Right.
Never turns out the way you quite want it to. And I think for Stephen Greer, I think he's leaned so heavily into this CE5 protocol narrative that
Yes.
he buried himself into it.
I think that's also very accurate as well. That like
Because if human initiated contact was debunked, his whole thing's out the window.
Right. Well, I'm surprised he hasn't tried to pull like a Corey Good and go as far as like trademarking CE5, kind of like how Corey Good was doing the the 20 and back thing. Like that guy's a piece of crap. Oh my god. Like because I'm not even gonna go into him. I don't even want to waste my breath. But yeah, it's just a shame that somebody that I believe had good connections, at least that being Greer, put himself in a situation now where essentially most, at least by my observation, most of the community has basically turned their backs on it. As soon as Lou started coming out with stuff, he was shooting missile after missile verbally at Lou, and there were things that I believe that he had said about Lou that were just not true. And Lou had like the receipts for this. He was able to back it up. He had Harry Reid's blessing. It's like, Greer, I don't see you providing any of that, nor have you ever. You say you briefed this person. I mean, I can remember there was like a short clip I saw one time, and it was Hal Putoff. Greer had said something like, oh yeah, me and Hal Putoff had dinner this one night, and blah, blah, blah. And Hal Putoff was like, that guy's an ass clown. I've never even met him. Like, and I'm just like, oh God, God, like
he's one of the types. He's one of those types who wants to insert himself into every story. Like for instance, we want to talk about the Admiral Wilson and Eric Davis documents.
Yes.
Greer says, "Oh, I had a meeting with Admiral Wilson and already disclosed all this stuff to him." And then, Admiral Wilson obviously denied it and was like, "No, we had a dinner together, like, and it was like a scheduled thing. But he asked me questions, like basically saying like, yeah, he had an opportunity maybe to ask me questions, but doesn't mean any fucking communication actually happened."
No.
But to Greer, it was like a sit down briefing, and here's what's actually happening, that kind of deal. And that's Greer's narrative every single time is it's him and his fucking gang of CE5 fanatics is what I want to call it.
And it's a shame because CE5 like is separate from Greer. There are good people doing good work like James Ian Doley and engaging the phenomenon, who is like the sweetest guy. I mean, he even took the time to wish me like a happy birthday on Twitter. Like, he's such a nice guy. Like, when you think of CE5, just don't think about Greer. There's other resources.
I think a lot of people are going to go over the heist.
That. Yeah,
I think a lot of the CE5 community that maybe still wants to practice human initiated contact, but doesn't actually. And it's not that they don't want to give Greer the recognition for but human initiated contact predates Dr. Greer. It doesn't. He just packaged it in a way that was
By
more
thousands of
modern.
years, he's the one that may have popularized it. Now my mouth isn't working in the modern era, but I mean, you could even argue that shamans have been practicing quote unquote CE5 since the beginning of time.
Yeah,
We don't have any. We don't know. This is why we're digging into this. But I will admit that I am currently trying certain protocols with CE5, and
I am too.
I have had some. I'm not saying that I had anything land in my front yard, but I have seen some things and have felt things that were unusual, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. But
Let's talk
again,
about that for a minute. Now, do you think consciousness? Now, for me, consciousness is, I think, a huge aspect to this. That I think I'd be super intrigued to see what happens to the collective consciousness if some sort of disclosure were to actually happen in the way that we see it happening. Like the way that we want it to happen is like, the president comes out.
there's
Ladies and
aliens.
gentlemen.
Come on, man.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen of the United States.
That whole bit.
We are not alone. And
In an official capacity.
here's the proof.
Here's it.
Yeah, signed disclosure, right? What would happen to humans in consciousness immediately following that? Would we immediately begin to go through some sort of process and change mentally? Or would it span over generations and through connecting with said other beings? Would it only then? Like, is it the acknowledgement or the interconnectivity? Like,
there's only one way to find out, and so it's like let's just do it. Let's just do it, because the collective consciousness, in my opinion, clearly exists. I'll say this, and again, I will preface this by saying I am not claiming in any way, shape, or form to be a mystic. I don't claim to be a medium, a psychic, or anything of that sort. But I do believe that these are things that all humans have in them, but we just don't have control over them. The night before 9/11, I was in 6th grade. And I'll never forget this. I can see it clear as day. I walked into my bedroom. I made a right. I stared at my alarm clock. It was 10:11 p.m. And I had this inner dialogue occur in my head where I was like, this school year, every day has been like clockwork. It's been almost like Groundhog Day. It's so similar. I was like, something different's gonna happen tomorrow. And a few months before that, I had this weird dream where I walked into my parents' bedroom and I looked out the window and I saw the back end of a Boeing 747 sticking out of my house, which is it's just so random, especially when you first see it. And I was just like, what the hell is that? And then the scene just changes and I'm walking down the hallway of what I thought was a hotel or something. But straight ahead, the wall is missing, and there's just paper just getting sucked out into the air. And so then 9/11 happens, and 2 weeks after 9/11, that dream popped back into my head. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And I put 2 and 2 together and was like, oh my God, did I dream about this before it happened? And again, they were able to measure changes in random number generators and things right around that time.
I was going to bring up the random number generator, plus that this has also happened in other places like Indonesia before the tsunamis.
Yes.
Other places as well, though, before tsunamis or after tsunamis. The correlation between just the depression before it and the ghostly contact afterwards, right? So.
Yes. Or the Japanese, the Fukushima event. There's a good episode of Unexplained Mysteries on Netflix that I encourage all of you to go watch, where they talk about the ghosts of Fukushima. There's countless taxi drivers that have reported picking people up that were ghosts, and they just
that.
Oh my God, and I believe these people because, and it's interesting because in Japanese culture, it seems like this will happen, and they're like, whoa. But they're like, wow, it finally happened, even though I've believed it my entire life. So it's it's possible that consciousness belief may play a role in some of this. And like you're saying, what would that do if it gets revealed to all of us? Well, you got some of us that are gonna just be like, "Yep, I believe it," and there's gonna be some people who are like, "Nope, it's coming from the government, so it's a lie." And then there's gonna be the people who are like, "Oh my god, this is scary." So it would be, I would suffice to say, it would probably be very chaotic, and
He thinks
but
that
it would be worse if it was like 50 years ago. I think that we can take the blow right now, but if this had been, like the 1940s or something, we would have had like a War of the Worlds type situation potentially.
Well, yeah, I don't think the money, not the money. I don't think I was reading this comment with ghost money or no
I
money.
saw that with ghost money.
But
I like that with Bitcoin.
yeah, the ghost
coin.
No, actually, you know what's funny is because he said, did they pay? And the taxi drivers eventually started regularly having ghosts in their car that
Yeah.
they just gave them a ride. Eventually, after seeing so many, they were like, "Oh, okay, just."
But they would try to help them too. They're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you're dead. You're lost.
Yeah.
Where are you trying to get to?" Like, it got that intense for some of these taxi drivers. I'm telling you, man, it's on Netflix. Like, and the UFO episode on. There's two UFO episodes of. There's the one where they got picked up out of their car, like an abduction scenario, which is very startling. And then there's the one out of Michigan where he's the radar operator. Yeah. I feel like that is a wicked good case as far as evidence.
It is
really, really solid case.
Super solid case. That one, and those are the ones, right? Those are the cases I'm looking for, because those ones, just like when you watch Moment of Contact, like I said, if you haven't seen Moment of Contact, watch it.
Gotta watch it.
It's those kind of cases that absolutely reinforce that this is the right track to be on.
Yes.
Because the amount of feeling and just downright changing of my emotional aspect or my emotional field, like through a fucking TV somehow, by something you're watching. Think about how complex that sounds and is, right? To be able to make me feel the things I feel watching Moment of Contact, it's just absolutely out of this world. Just the story is so bizarre, and there's so much evidence that leans and points one way that it's almost overwhelming to hear it.
Totally agree with that.
And something in my body just like,
I had goosebumps.
I think it's like a weird feeling.
And anger. I had anger.
Yeah, because who gave
for those people that were put under pressure again by the military? That just made me really mad.
I fucking hate who gave the U.S. government or any government of this world the control to limit that knowledge.
Yeah, isn't that? And it's because it seems like the United States, if I had to wager, we're the gatekeepers of this. Maybe, I'm sure Russia and China have, something. But
you can't walk up to Russia and be like, "Hey, I need help with a situation on the DL." Like, Russia's going to exploit you. The United States wants to keep that fucking secret. So,
and I can understand, like, if I was alive in 47 and something crashes and I'm like, oh my God, this is clearly from somewhere not of this earth. At the time, would I keep it secret? Probably, like when you really think about it, because there's that worry, especially back then, with the Russians, the Cold War, all of that. But it then does get to a point where it's like, how long are we going to continue down this path of mutually assured destruction, or where it's like Russia versus China versus the United States? Like, when are we just going to cut the shit out and be like, we're all humans, let's evolve, let's get to the next step, like, for the betterment of all of our children, grandchildren, and their grandchildren and their great grandchildren? Like, when are we gonna grow the fuck up? Like, honestly, like, when Russia started like invading the Ukraine, I'm just sitting, I'm like in disbelief. I'm like, it's 2022 and we're still doing this. We're this archaic nonsense, this caveman dick waving bullshit. We're fighting over fucking territory. Like, we have how about everybody just comes to a table and says, "Hey, my country needs this. My country needs this. Figure it the fuck out.
Well,
Figure it out.
that's what the
Be
UN is,
adults. Yeah, but like,
but it doesn't work. That's the problem. That's the fucking whole problem is it doesn't work.
it
They've
doesn't
even
work.
tried it. The United Nations is exactly that. Let's sit at the fucking table and say this, but it became politicized, and it's all about the people that are sitting at the table. It's not about everyone else. It's about those people sitting at the table.
Too
Politicians
many strings
suck.
are being pulled by too many people that really shouldn't have their hands on the strings to begin with. Like,
Yeah, they have no business with it.
like I was watching that show Ozark on Netflix, which is amazing. If you like Breaking Bad, you should definitely watch Ozark. But like the political things that occur on that show, where it like, oh, we're gonna go have dinner with this guy. He's against this bill, but if we, get him a little drunk and kind of sweet talk him, he might sign in our favor. It's like that's not how politics is supposed to work. How it's supposed to work is like you actually stick to your guns and you go with what you believe in, and I shouldn't be able to buy you off.
That
You know
was
what? That
the
shouldn't be a
China
thing.
job, right? The China something Netflix documentary on Hulu.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's exactly what the Chinese did. The Chinese do to people is
They send hot spies over here and then
no,
they
no,
sleep
no,
with
no. They
politicians.
throw them lavish fucking parties, and they get
yeah,
you
so
hammered, and
mhm.
they get you on their side. That's
That's
exactly what they
wild,
did.
dude. It's
Yeah,
art of Chinese warfare. They don't have to attack us with planes and missiles, and they're fucking winning. Like low key, they're winning.
Do you know what it would take though for us to work as one? It'd be facing an extinction level event together.
I think you're absolutely
Sadly,
right.
sadly, like if
Yep.
there was an asteroid headed towards us, that's the only thing that would unite us to a common goal. And trust me, if we if we worked together as one and like somehow got out of said situation 10 years later or 20 years later, as soon as that generation of peace died out, back to square one. And
You're
that's the
probably
fucking
right.
sad part.
It is sad. It is. It's terrible. Like I almost joined the military in 2016, and then again, it was just like it was a financial decision. I didn't want to go into combat, and I'm not claiming that I was trying to be some like gung ho GI Joe type either. But I just something. And again, I have nothing against anybody that serves. I had a lot of family that served, and they're heroes to me. But like for myself, I'm like, I just don't agree with this. Our military is supposed to be here for protection. It shouldn't be an offensive minded unit. And unfortunately,
It's not a
uh,
sword to be wielded.
right. And unfortunately,
It's
there
a
are
shield.
very few things that could unite this world because and again, I'm not against anybody that's religious, but let's be honest. Let's just lay out the facts here. If aliens landed, how are the Christians going to react? How are the Muslims going to react? Like, there are people who are so stuck in their ways that if something came along and shook up what they knew to be reality, like, they would probably ignore it, or they would be like, well, let me look at my book and see what I can relate it to so that I can, bash it instead of trying to understand it and trying to adjust and realizing what reality actually is around them. You know, I mean,
Well, sadly, I don't think like I think the initial punch of disclosure is going to shake the world, right? No matter how it happens, it's going to shake and rattle the world, right? Now, if that's a direct reveal somehow by like popping down on Washington, that is going to cause a bigger panic than like a James Webb discovery, and
yeah.
then maybe finding a crashed UFO, and who knows, maybe a strategic disclosure is the best way to do it. Maybe that is the safest way to do it.
I think what they're doing now is probably the safest way to do it. It's just like
and
little
you know
by
what?
little.
I'm okay with that because I don't want
'Cause it's still
fucking mass
happening.
chaos. I don't. There are some people that really like want some sort of like apocalypse, and it's like, why?
Yeah, because they're into doom porn.
You're like, you don't like being able to wake up in the morning? Is that
No,
is
they're
that-
mad that Planet X isn't on its way to pull the oceans out of the basins. Like, they're those types of people. It's like, dude, come on. It's like, if we really had that happen, you would be shitting your pants, my friend.
And honestly, I would be happy. Like, again, this happens to be the tie-in, I guess. But if we could somehow look past this whole like divided, we're even divided amongst ourselves, right? Like with
Oh,
racism and sexism and all the isms you could think of.
all the
But
wastes of time.
so imagine adding a different species that is the actual alpha, because when you tell an alpha species that we're not the alpha, we're not going to really, react kindly to that. It's it's always going to feel a little bit threatening, and like we're the small kid on the block all of a sudden. But
Right.
the protection, the technology advancements, just the benefits that could be gained by a relationship potentially. Now this comes down to, we can't shoot first and ask questions later.
No,
Not with
can't.
this situation.
Not this situation. Not at all. I think you had mentioned this in one of your previous podcasts.
Did.
Just how dangerous that type of thing would be, and I would even take a guess and say that it's probably already happened a couple times, based on some of the stuff I've read. We have shot at them and have possibly even taken down some of their craft. Like Roswell may have been that. We have no idea. It's just,
Yeah, that's a
it's
huge.
like, well, they're so technologically advanced. It's like, well, we may have something that is not so advanced, but it's just a compatibility situation where, like, kind of like styles make fights in boxing. Like, this guy might be the better boxer, but this guy's going to win because styles win fights. Like, this is just, it's just science,
Or just happens to be circumstantial and
could be,
situational.
or it could have been natural. Like, I always thought that the Roswell craft came down because of lightning, because of some of the stories that were told. I always thought it
That's
was
what was
lightning.
always, that was really the basis for the that was always the kind of, I guess, string on that bow. But some people say, now what if there was, okay, now a lot of people with the crashes are always like, they make the joke, so they traveled across the galaxy, they got here and then crashed.
Oh man, I'm so tired
Now,
of hearing that one.
yeah, but if we lowered that to one crashed, and then we combined like Tesla's death ray with
Right.
fucking, with the reverse engineered craft that we had, and then we started taking them down, that's a little bit more, okay, now I understand where you're going
Right.
with this, right?
And
That's
how
a
do we
little
know
bit,
they came across the galaxy?
yeah,
That's the other thing. Like, we don't know. They may have not
came
come very far
dimensionally.
at all. Right. Or they could have came from underground. We have no idea. Like, I feel, based on the literature, based on everything that I've read, that there's a lot of stuff going on. I think this Earth likely has been visited by interstellar, intergalactic, interdimensional, and crypto. Like,
What is the last one?
so that, I believe, like,
I thought that
crypto terrestrial is like they're native to Earth. They're actually from Earth. So
okay.
good example is that in the Hopi tradition, out in the Midwestern United States, they speak of
Space people,
they
yeah.
speak of a flood
Yeah.
that occurred, and that the ant people, as they called them, came
yeah,
up
the
from
ant people
underground
came
and
up.
took them down and saved them from the flood, and protected their culture. Like,
Yeah.
and how far have we gotten to the center of the Earth, to ask a very dumb, cliche, simple question? We haven't gotten all the way down there. Like, we can make inferences based on hypotheses and scientific information that we have at our disposal at this point, that we can determine, like, hey, there's a good chance that this is going on here and this is going on here. But I always wondered about Hollow Earth, and I never really dug into that one too deeply until recently. And what got me into it was the new Godzilla movie. It, like, just, I was just like, oh,
Dude,
you know what I
I
mean?
said that the other day. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what Hollow Earth reminded me of.
Right,
Is
exactly.
that whole fucking sequence in Godzilla vs Kong.
Yeah, that whole sequence is based on Hollow Earth theory.
It must have
Actually,
been.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Oh, no, like, it was confirmed. Like, they were, the guys that were writing it, like, they even said, like, yeah, Hollow Earth, it's kind of interesting. Let's use it. So, how do we know that there aren't, and like all the caves, all the caverns are oceans? Like, I think it's more likely that there's something going on down on the seabeds than the center of the Earth. Like, if I had to pick between the two, the oceans, I think, are probably the key. 'Cause
Best
it's like,
candidate. Yeah.
you don't like, how many stories do you know of a UFO flying out of a hole in the ground? versus a UFO flying out of like the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
The ocean is the major candidate, and if you find that interesting, there's a good movie out there called The Abyss, one of James Cameron's earlier movies. That is an incredible alien movie that does not get talked about often, and I feel like it flies under the radar. That's an incredible movie if you're into like the whole USO thing. Like, go watch that movie.
Yeah, I mean, 70% of the Earth is water, and we still haven't even, explored a fraction of it.
No, we have
we
more
haven't
of
bit
space
off.
mapped out.
Yeah, we have a better idea of
Actually.
what space is like. Imagine that. So for at least an Earth-based candidate, the ocean got to be the number one. And then
Yes.
you can start, then we start getting into stuff like Hollow Earth and stuff like that.
I agree.
But,
Totally agree.
to move on a little bit, just to keep us on the right track here, I watched the missing four. After you had kind of mentioned the missing 411. Now I had heard about the missing 411. A bunch of people had already made the correlation before this movie came out. There's other movies with the tag the missing 411. Then there's another one, the missing 411. Colon this. Now we get. Right now for purchase on Amazon, Apple TV, etc., is the missing 411 colon the UFO connection. Now you have
Trending
to be
at number one.
You have to be very specific to put in the UFO connection, or you'll be watching even Holly watched the wrong one by accident.
No kidding. Still worth
that
watching
UAP
the other ones.
Girl didn't even watch the correct one.
Poor Holly.
Yeah,
I feel for her.
She texted me. She's like. Like we were having a conversation about it. Like I was like, oh, I'm an hour in. She's like, oh, I'm 30 minutes in. She's like, I was like, what do you think? And she's like, oh, as a mother. And I'm like, why are you talking about being a mother? It makes no sense. But after she realizing she didn't watch the right one, she was watching the one just based on the missing people.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah, just the missing 411.
So I'm
which is creepy.
It is, but this movie, it didn't center on that. Like as a mother kind of feel. So
right, yeah, I know.
What the fuck is she talking about?
What is she getting at?
Yeah, I was like, where's she going?
Trying to make that connection between the two. It's like,
yeah.
But there's some scenes in this one where I would have been like, I couldn't imagine being that person's like significant other.
Now,
like that's a little bit more relevant, I feel.
I'm gonna say this as the third film to come out for purchase on a big scale like this to come out, because I got Moment of Contact. That one, maybe even In Plain Sight, maybe one or two more. With those being the movies I've done since this podcast went from movies to this, I think this would be the lowest on that poll. For me, it was kind of boring, and the reveal of it, connecting the UFO connection, wasn't as lasting or impressionable as I thought it was going to be. Now, this could be a case of writing, editing, or, not too much connection and kind of a money grab. Or it could have just been, like maybe they didn't present it the right way. And there's more to come. What did you feel like? Did you like it?
This is one of the few times that I completely disagree. Yeah, I really did like it, actually. And I'll point out what grabbed my attention. I took some notes. I was actually like just at my day job, had it on my phone.
Oh, by the way,
just wrote some stuff down.
By the way, don't spoil too much of it. I don't.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll pick very, very wisely. This is something that you could just find in his books, but
okay.
Because there's things that are really odd that really stuck out to me. So, like the RCMP was withholding information. So you have these organizations that have a hand and are responsible in tracking data and as far as people that are going missing in these national parks. And there always seems to be this unwillingness to cooperate. Polides has even said, like, oh yeah, well, I forget who he contacted, but I think it was like a Freedom of Information Act request. And they're like, yeah, we'll give it to you when you give us $1.6 million or something. It's like he's asking for
that is not how that works.
Right. And it's just like, so why are you doing that? I thought it was very chilling. There was a specific story about a UFO and an animal that I thought was very chilling. the fact that, and again, this is information you can just find in his books. The dogs, they bring these dogs out to track people. They disappear from right next to other people, like in the blink of an eye, and so there is a scent there. Like these dogs are trained to find people. You know, let's go sniff their clothing that we still have. They will find that scent, and they're like sometimes they pick up on it and then they just stop. Like this
Right.
is where the scent ends, and it's like they just got plucked out of that spot. Or sometimes there's no scent at all, which is even more bizarre. And then this idea of this chronic wasting disease that this is
Yeah,
flying
you know what?
way
Actually,
under the radar, which is very disturbing. Actually, this prion disease that's apparently afflicting so many elk and deer across North America right now, and they have no fucking clue of where it came from.
yeah, actually, that
Disturbing.
you know what I will say is I think I was more interested in, I guess, one side of it. It was like,
Right.
oh, the missing people, like that part of it was, it's all well told. It's just, I guess, the connection didn't fit as well for me because it was super interesting and like from one side I was like, oh, the UFO, like, oh, maybe if they took the UFO out of this that whole thing, maybe I could get in, maybe I'd be a little bit more interested. And then I was like, oh, that's why they've already done that.
I
That's
thought
why.
those witnesses that they had in the documentary were pretty believable, though.
Yeah, I think, but I think it. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's just.
Yeah, it could just be one of those things. You know, I like, but you know, again, I'm a little biased too. I've been following David's work for like a decade,
He seems
and
very
he's grounded. I think he's a good
grounded.
guy.
Grounded. Yeah.
He's you know what, like not even to like kind of go off in like a weird direction here. He's been through some tough times over the last year. Lost his son.
Oh, terrible.
Lost his battle with mental health. So I don't feel like he's on like a money grab crusade. I watched a video last night actually when I was laying in bed before sleep, and it was like a tribute to his son. And I was like, you know, I don't know, I just put it on. Like it was just there, and I'm like, yeah, let me, you know, let's see what this guy's thinking, what he's going through. And it's just not I'm not getting the money grab vibe from this guy whatsoever. Like I feel like now that, especially now that he has lost his son, these people that he interacts with that have lost their children, that have just vanished, like they didn't even get closure. You know, at least he had a funeral to go to, that he, you know, his
Yeah.
son's physically there. So I feel like he's on a crusade for some of these people. And I read the first book, and he has done an extraordinary job of collecting data and creating data sets and connecting dots. Like it's very deep. Like this movie doesn't tell the whole story. There is weird shit going on in these national parks, and some of these organizations, they know about it and they don't want to talk about it. Why they won't touch it, what they actually know, not sure, but they don't really want to go anywhere near it. And I very much support David's work. Also, just because I know he deals with this, don't buy his books through Amazon. Buy it through the Can-Am Missing Project website, because if you go on Amazon, there are people who are like taking his books and flipping them. Like Missing 411 paperback was like $175 on Amazon. I'm like, what the fuck?
That's
For a
what?
for a
For a
paperback book
paperback book.
that they have
What?
plenty of copies of. Yeah, you go to I believe it's canammissingproject.com. Like go to his actual website. Don't ever buy anything related to his work anywhere but his website, because there's people out there that are trying to make a buck off of his hard work, and that's fucked
That's
up,
so
and I hate
weird.
that. I just hate that.
That's so, what a weird thing to do.
Yeah. It's beef.
But anyway, I would say go watch the film.
Oh,
Maybe
for sure.
maybe it just wasn't presented right, or maybe it was, maybe I'd have to watch it a second time. I think it was, maybe it was because I paid $20 and watched it, and I was like, I don't feel like I was. Maybe it was something I would have rather waited for, right?
That's reasonable. And again, for me, it's like I like the guy's work. And as I'm going through the books, I felt that he did a good job of choosing the cases, because like there was physical evidence for this. That's what's really important. I'm not gonna go into detail because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But I feel like a lot of the people in this chat that, like, if you go and watch it, I feel like most of them will probably say, "Oh, that was actually really fucking wild."
Yeah.
This is just, you know, again, But
So
I feel
for
like
me,
it's important that this information gets spread around, that people are just going missing, and like it's just like, oh, let's just not talk about it. Like, let's just act like it's not happening, and then let's charge somebody millions of dollars to give them the information. Like, that's suspect. Very
for sure.
suspicious. Doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. Why would you do that? Why would you? Also, without going into any detail, it was proven that like the what's the word I'm looking for? Forestry Commission, whoever it was, the guy, whoever was the organization that was responsible for one of these search and rescues where they didn't find this person, like they were caught lying to the family. Now, why would you do that at all? There's literally, you cannot give me a reasonable answer for that.
Unless
So
they someone stumbled across something that they shouldn't have, and then it's a true conspiratorial
weird connections, and then
connection.
there's all these weird patterns where like you'll find that like a lot of these places have a very ominous name and have always oh, this is like Devil's Ridge or something like that, and there's like a cluster of people that went missing there, like, and then I will go into a little bit of detail with this one. He makes a connection where there were people there's a case that he talks about for this film, and then he's like, oh my god, there were 2 other cases that happened right here, and he was able to pinpoint where they went missing on a map, and it makes a perfect fucking triangle. And that's just weird.
Yeah.
Like in data sets like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I thought that plus the little connection between like, this new form of like basically mad cow disease.
Scary.
That was an intense part of it.
No cure, no treatment, nothing. They
Yeah.
have nothing to do. Like, it's 100% fatal to these animals.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I wonder why no one. How come this movie was the first time I'm hearing about anything like that?
Thank you.
Why? How is that even possible?
Thank you. I don't know. It's like when mad cow disease broke out. It was like breaking news: mad cow disease. Will it infect humans? And then they're like, don't eat the meat here, but it won't infect people. But yet, according to this documentary, over 100 people actually did die from exposure to mad cow disease when they ate that meat. And they slaughtered over 7,000 cattle, or it was either 7,000 or 7 million. It was a big number, over in the UK as a result of mad cow disease.
Yeah, can you keep talking about that for a second? I just gotta check on something real quick.
Yeah, sure. So, I think what David was getting at is that on this side you have this obvious connection with UFOs, but then you have this outbreak of disease, and it's like when you put those 2 things together, it's like, were these animals potentially injected with something? Were they exposed to something? Is this some sort of biological weapons test that's being done on cattle by someone? It's very disturbing, and the fact that, and again, without giving away too much, all I'll say is that there's a story in this documentary about an elk and a UFO. You can put that together in your heads however you want. I don't want to give away too much there, out of fairness to David's work. But that story is just flat out disturbing. So, again, we all, I would imagine, know about cattle mutilations. The work that Linda Moulton Howe did specifically towards cattle mutilations back in like the 80s, 90s. I know she gets involved with some things people think are a little weird now, but I mean, she still did a lot of hard work. There's some, like, it appears that some presence is here, and they're collecting or utilizing genetic material from animals. Why? Don't know.
Hopefully to save us from something. I don't know.
From ourselves at this point.
That would be like,
I feel like we're the ultimate threat to
right?
humanity. Is humanity. Humanity is the ultimate threat to humanity.
Yeah, someone said it earlier, like Arrival. Arrival is always like my kind of like what I think. I remember coming out of the movie theater with this like insane, overwhelming feeling of like, I just watched exactly what would happen.
It was a great movie. Great.
Yeah. Like imagine they were actually here to help us, which would thus in turn save the world, like save the universe.
And them.
And them.
They're like,
But
we need your help, so we're gonna do this for you.
But we were too stubborn to try to learn what they were saying or what, like we would rather shoot first, and that's where I get that whole thing is we would rather shoot first and ask questions later, rather than finding out why they're here. Why did
Such a
instead of
silly
asking the
strategy.
question why, or instead of phrasing the question why did you travel this far to come here as a military asking that question, or a civilian, like a regular, like let's say civilian scientist. Those two aspects, when those two people are asking that question, it's for two entirely different reasons. Now, do both need to ask the question? Yes.
Yes.
But does one have more say over the other? In my opinion, no.
I agree with you. It's think about it this way too. If they arrived here and they're intergalactic, one could reasonably conclude that they are more technologically advanced than humanity is right now. So why the fuck would you shoot at someone that's got a better weapon than you when you know they're just gonna ice you? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Wouldn't you rather extend a handshake and say, "Hey, listen, I recognize that we're inferior to you. Uh, you've arrived here. Hi." Like, there's no good reason to just start shooting. There isn't. There just isn't a good reason. Like, if they just land and they walk out of their ship and they're just standing there and nothing has happened yet, why would you shoot? Because you could reasonably conclude that if you do shoot, you are going to lose because they made it all the way here from somewhere, which means that they probably have better weapons.
Yeah, and then and then you just shot first.
Duh! Like, why would you shoot first? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Asshole.
That's why I would never want any military on this earth representing humanity as a whole in a contact situation. Like, you can be here and be on the outskirts, but we need to be sending like philosophers, scientists, diplomats, like people who know how to communicate and people who have humanity's best interests at heart. Not the guy with the Stinger missile on his shoulder. That guy can stay over there in case something goes down.
Right.
But they shouldn't be the first ones up there. No fucking way. Never, 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 never. And I'm afraid that maybe this is a good segue, right? That if John Ramirez is accurate in what he said, that we'll see how that one goes, right? You got the clip.
This one I'm actually gonna play because I think
fantastic.
I think it's kind of being taken slightly out of context by some people when they say he says, like, he doesn't directly, like, even my title is kind of, that's why I said I grifted you tonight, kind of with the clickbaity title, because I don't think he necessarily said that, oh my god, they're absolutely arriving by 2027, but in a weird way he kind of does also. So let's watch the clip and then we'll talk about it after.
For sure.
Right.
Can you hear that?
Well, I think the dialogue we're having now in this country, even with the recent legislation that passed through the legislature and is on its way up to the president's desk, even with that, we're kind of preparing the U.S. population, at least, and by extension, the world population, into that reality that there is a presence here. And that we need to explain this presence, because if they show up and we continue to do what we did before previous decades and they show up, there will be mass panic. But if you understand that, though, these are real, and we have 5 years from 2022, or maybe now 4 years, if they come in 2027, for the U.S. government to prepare the people about what is up there. And in many ways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do. And so I think that dialogue has happened within inside the government, in certain areas inside the government, that we need to prepare. And that's why in 2017, that set a clock of 10 years. And
so here's the quote.
Earlier in this year said, just find a hobby for 5 years. And it'll all be out in 5 years. And he said that this year, so that was 2027.
Huh.
And I would say I've heard 2027 in a kind of an official capacity I can't reveal. So I think I would say that people in the government are aware of something happening and that there's limited time, uh, a few more years to prepare the people. And that's what's ramping up this acceleration from the previous 7 decades of not even acknowledging it to now we are acknowledging it at a faster and faster pace.
It's kind of a scary
Now I heard out on
thing.
it was probably social media like Twitter or
It's
something
chilling.
like that. That the report.
So then they get into the UAP report. So now you can kind of see why we were saying that without basically saying like there's something happening right now and the pressure is on, right? Like the US government is being forced to basically oust themselves. It's the better of two options. Now, why go against 70 to 80 years of denial? Well, again, it seems to be the better of two options, and for that to be the set, it kind of leaves me with a weird feeling. So to say something is happening, that the clock is ticking, I guess it doesn't rub me the right way. At least I hope it's not like we just talked about, like
Yeah.
seeing something heading our way, right, and knowing precisely when it will get here. That is something we are capable of, by the way. Seeing something from a long distance, knowing it, calculating its trajectory, speed, all that, and knowing exactly when it would get here. That is a capability that we currently have. So, is that the kind of clock that's ticking? Or is it, and it's hush hush? Or has there been some dialogue, legitimate dialogue, like whether we made contact via radio signal or how the fuck is there a clock ticking? That's my question. What clock?
It sounded very literal to me. And I will say this too. I wanted to pull this out. Chris Sharp from Liberation Times was doing an AMA on Reddit the other day, and he actually got to my question too, which is cool. But I'll mention that later if it comes up. So Chris had made a statement that kind of ties in to what we're talking about here, which is really interesting. So he had said that based on his sources, there seems to be a sense of urgency to get this information out. I'm looking for like the exact quote. But he's under the impression, for whatever reason, because he said, I'm not really sure why, that the clock is ticking.
Yeah, I don't know if does he go into it after? Maybe I took it down too quick.
Well, so what? No, so Ramirez really meant that literally, that in an official capacity, he heard that something is coming or something is going to happen, some sort of revelation in 2027, and they are getting us ready for it.
Right.
Okay, here it is right here. A Reddit user says, "Hi, Chris. I was wondering what your personal feelings and impressions are toward the consequence/outcome of disclosure of an ET presence, assuming that happens. Thank you." He says, "Oh gosh, good question. After certain conversations, I still come away in shock. Let's say if information does come out which proves beyond doubt that we are dealing with non-human intelligence, then it's of huge consequences. There are so many cultures and religions which will be impacted in certain ways. I don't know how you roll this out without any negative repercussions at all. But I have detected some urgency to get this information out. I am not sure why that may be."
Yeah.
And what I had mentioned to you off air, Jimmy Church, it was like last year, he had this guy on, I can't remember his name, but he's Chris Mellon's cousin. And he wrote like a book. He's into cars, he's rich, but he's very like,
Of course he is.
in the know, it seems like, and he knows a lot about like the esoteric and the occult, like Illuminati, for lack of a better word to use, but like a lot of like the weird like political bloodline elements of all of this. And during the live stream, he said something to Jimmy like, yeah, like he said people like in the background in the intelligence community, some people that are like in the know, they said he said something is coming because Jimmy says to him, yeah, I feel as though that we're in a situation where there might be something on the horizon, and this guy looks at him through the podcast and says, yes, he says something is coming, and then the show just stopped.
No.
The broadcast stopped. It never came back on, and it was never mentioned. Like the show just ended. I swear to God, dude, it's on my TikTok. Like, it was just really bizarre.
Weird. That is bizarre. Now, I mean, should we, should we as a community try to get that word out? Maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't know. At this point, you know, I don't necessarily know how I would handle it if I was in charge of all of it. So if there is something on its way,
Right.
this becomes almost a very different situation.
Very,
Like-
very, very different.
And a very difficult one. If you think about it from a government's perspective, right? What is their job? It was to protect citizens. If all of a sudden they can't do that, that's information that they can't control. What you can't control, you don't like to admit, right? We as human beings just have a hard time admitting when we can't control something. So,
The government will not, and the military especially, they will not admit to things that they cannot control. And they will not admit to things that they know they are not stronger than.
And I think we have to have a humility about us in this situation, this topic. And I think that's why it is a very serious topic at the end of the day, because when you bring it down, blow for blow, shot for shot, this is either, the scariest or the happiest ending, right? In the story of human history.
Yes.
So, that's what I want to know. I think that's what everyone wants to know is if there is something that's here, what is the intention?
Yes.
Friend or foe? Because if you're a friend, all right, that changes everything, right?
Totally.
That changes everything.
Totally. Even if they're
That's
more
why-
advanced than us, I'm not, and that's another thing I want to say about this whole idea, like, oh, we're not the top of the food chain. Don't look at it that way, because when you look at the food chain, that really refers to creatures that eat each other, right? Like, if they come here and they're more advanced than us, but they're not here to eat us, you don't have to look at it as a food chain. You can kind of look at it as like a big brother, little brother type situation, not necessarily, the animal kingdom where it's like a lion's going to eat a gazelle, but a human's going to, hunt a lion. For all we know, they may have done away with war. They may have never had war. We don't know. That's the thing. It's a clash of cultures, and is it potentially dangerous? Yes, but it doesn't necessarily have to have that potential of danger because of them. It could have it because of us.
Yeah,
We're the ones with the nuclear weapons that have blown each other up.
Look at the Virginia case as a prime candidate, right? Now,
Right.
if we're to believe that if we're to believe that the girls had the sighting, that all of that part of it, right? Because everyone seems to agree on 3 or 4 things: is the smell of ammonia, oily skin, red eyes, and big eyes, right? Those are like 4 distinct.
The
and then the three distinct head feature, right? And
Yes.
all those things, right? This creature, I hate using that word, but that's what a lot of people in that down there use the word creature because they're Catholics and they think they're demons and stuff. But
Yeah, and I get that. I was raised Catholic, so trust me. I
but
know.
again, this thing you got it had a scaredness to it, right?
Yes, apparently.
A very similar scaredness that the girls had of it had of them. So again, I think advancement is we base that on a advancement rate of humans. Like we base everything on the human timetable, right? We can't do that here because
No.
they are not human. Like we don't know what their like what their fucking intentions. It's so hard to explain, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. We can't
Yes,
look
I
at
totally
this from
do.
a human angle. It is simply
Right, you have
not
to
as
think
cut and dry.
outside of the box because, again, we could be dealing with creatures that have completely different customs and cultures. Like to them, a handshake, the gesture, if they're bipedal and also have two arms or look anything like us, a handshake, that may mean like, hey, guess what? It's time to duel. We don't
Right.
know. Or like a wave may mean war. Like flipping the bird may be like, I love you. You know what I mean? Again, I feel like these types of beings, though, would be far beyond that. And they would, if they are as advanced as they seem and we follow just like the basic UFO literature, they probably already know a lot about us and would probably come down and know to wave. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that would happen. Kind of like, at the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where like the alien stands there and he puts his hand up and he does a little head tilt. It's such a beautiful moment.
This is something, I guess, as well as the enslavement aspect.
That's actually my IRL buddy.
Yeah.
Zio.
So
It's my
that
YouTube
whole,
tech.
I guess I've talked about the scenarios that would require a visit. The one that makes the most sense still doesn't even make a lot of sense, right? And you have to think, so what would a reason for coming to Earth be? I guess we could start with the first one: invasion.
Yeah, let's just get that. Let's just resources, essentially.
It seems illogical to come this far to start a fight. It really does.
Yeah.
Because if they exist and we exist, that's at least two advanced civilizations, two advanced planetary civilizations. Let's call it that.
And I'm sure if they're intergalactic, they could have their choice of planets. Like, what would you rather deal with? Grabbing resources from a planet where these beings have weapons that split atoms, or this planet over here where there's no
That's
intelligent life?
Like,
You know what I mean?
There's
they're
gotta be
beyond
what
that.
they need closer to them than we are. So that brings you down the rabbit hole of enslavement. But if you think, if these are advanced beings, they could most likely, they have perfected artificial intelligence. It could potentially build their own slave labor force.
Yeah, they may already have that in the Greys because, like we talked about this the other day when I was on, that the Greys may just be biological robots that are doing the bidding of another race. Like, again, I would, if I'm a betting man, a civilization that, like, especially if they're intergalactic, if they came here, like, it's possible that they came here for resources, but if they came here for resources, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're here to steal them. They make, you know what I mean? Like if let's say humans, like 1,000 years from now, we really go through some growth and some changes, and we're really not fighting with ourselves like we used to be, and we need help, and we stumble upon a planet that has intelligent life. We may go down there and be like, listen, we need your help. Here's what we can exchange to you for that help, just like in Arrival. Like, it can be for resources, but it doesn't have to be nefarious in nature, or it could literally be scientific exploration, or they were traveling through space because that's what they do. They found us by accident, and it's literally like a mission of curiosity. It's like, what would we do if we were out in space? Human beings are flying past this heavenly body that they know nothing about, and they're picking up all types of signals and indications that there's definitely activity down there. Probably going to go check that out. But again, I'm the optimist, but I feel like we're in a situation where we have been visited by multiple civilizations, and each one of them has a different agenda. One, I think there's definitely evidence that there's some sort of hybridization program going on. And then I also believe that we have probably been visited by scientific explorers. From where? I don't know. None of us can really answer that question. But this ties back into what we were saying earlier. Like, regardless of which one it is, the shoot first, ask questions later mentality cannot be utilized. That is like, you are setting yourself up for disaster, for ultimate failure, and potentially like ultimate destruction. But if Ramirez is right, and something is on the way, and I don't really know what that means. I don't know if there's like, a visitation that occurs every so many years. I have no idea. Like, I feel like if it was something cataclysmic in nature, that there would be different things happening right now.
Yeah, and who's to say that?
Like if they
that-
knew that.
Yeah, who's to say that they're not? Maybe maybe. What if they came here and they're like, "Hey, I hate to break it to you, but you know, something is going to happen in this many years, and we're here to help you get prepped for that, and we'll help you take care of it. But you know, we're gonna have to be here. You're gonna have to live with us for a little while."
I'm going to mention something that I don't want to be true. I don't even like bringing it up, but if you look at how many different major cataclysms are actually overdue that happen periodically on this planet, there's a lot. The potential eruption of the Yellowstone caldera. There was just that earthquake over in the Pacific off the
Yep.
coast of California in the whatchamacallit subduction zone. Like what if that's what's going on? Like they're coming here as like an arc because they know that there's a ticking time bomb here or something. You know what I mean? Like I hate thinking of shit like that, and I'm not trying to be like doom porn or like write a script for like the next 2012 movie here, but like like everything is on the table until it's off the table, and my mind goes off in a million different directions. But again, a guy like Ramirez with his pedigree and the reputation that he has, I feel like he wouldn't have made that statement unless he really did hear it. Like, I don't think he just made that up. I think he did hear that from somebody. Whether it's true or not remains to be seen. They could be testing him for leaking information. Who knows? You have no idea.
He also knows that he cannot say anything like that without the UFO community absolutely blowing it up. So he meant to have that conversation,
which is startling to me.
Yeah. So
it is.
They went in knowing that they were having that conversation, and
because I'm not a fan of dates at all. I'm not like as soon as somebody like like a David Wilcock or whatever, like well, the Mayans and blah blah blah. It's like, oh God, here we go again. Or some guy comes on the internet and says, listen, the aliens told me in 2035 that we're gonna collide with Venus. It's like I'm not here for that. Like I don't have time. I got into an argument with a fucking flat earther on Twitter today. Like, it's just like, I don't have the patience. So when it comes out of the mouth of a Ramirez or like an Elizondo or any of these guys, like, that's when I'm like, what did you just say? And why did you just say that?
Yeah.
It's very startling.
Imagine this.
Maybe it is the Anunnaki. You're right, David. Maybe it is.
Imagine they did come as an arc and like they had enough space to fit everybody.
That'd be nuts.
I'm talking everybody.
That's a big ship.
And we all got to leave and go to some other planet. Would people decline and stay behind? I think absolutely. I
think some people would go down with the ship for sure. Oh yeah.
Absolutely they would. And
there would be somebody that would do that for sure.
And by the way, to this Skinwalker Ranch guy, Kevin Day is a good friend of mine who was famously involved in the Tic Tac incident as he was stationed on the Princeton. And he tracked the things, and he was the guy who vectored Fravors' flight to intercept it. So I'm very familiar with the 2004 incident. The 2005 one, not so much, but I would definitely. I've been reading your comments, and I mean, if you were actually on the Nimitz, I would love to talk to you a lot more. Trust me. So
yeah, me and him have brushed shoulders on Twitter a couple times. Skinwalker. He's mentioned this before.
If he's from the Nimitz, why is his name Skinwalker? Did he develop what I found most often is the case with people is they had one job that led them to figure out something that they might not have otherwise. Like it's how we all come across the subject is different, but for the most part, it like categorizes itself into three ways. Just pure like luck of the draw interest. A sighting, or like your position at the government, you cross paths with something that made you ask the right question,
or
right?
a combination of all of those,
or a combination of all of it, and then they dedicate the rest of their life to it. No other topic makes people literally give up everything and just focus on answering one thing.
And I'll even say that about Stephen Greer. I mean, look at the job that he had. He was a surgeon. The guy was making buku bucks doing what he was doing. Probably very hard, stressful, important work. He's an emergency room doctor, physician, and then he has this like near death experience, and now look, like there's a lot of people out there like that.
I would say every single person, at least that I've talked to, that I honestly, I can't even tell you one person that doesn't fall into like that was born into it. No, that's really just not how this happens. No one is born with that, like the conviction of these of UFO people. I've never
I
seen.
may feel that way personally, like with me, for instance. It's like this has been with me my whole life. Don't know why, but I again, I have theorized based on certain things that it's very possible that I'm an experiencer and don't know it. And that, and I don't like to say this because I can't prove it, but, it would explain a lot. And it's like maybe it was like embedded into my subconscious because, I mean, this is next to life after death, this is the single most important topic ever. Like, and it's frustrating when I try to have conversations like I am having right now with you, with just regular people, and they're just like, dude, I don't care either way. I don't give a shit. I still have to pay my taxes. It's like, dude, break out of that matrix. God.
Well, let's say maybe not even contact. Maybe maybe let's just say, somewhere down the line, that whole reverse engineering shit comes out and people find out that, things have been here before. And that's all, that's really it, right? Say that's what we find out. I still think it wouldn't affect as many people as we think their day to day. And this story would still be hard to sell, like to everybody, right?
I was going to say that earlier. Same thing that like you see the reaction that occurred when the 2017 story broke, and it was big, and it did grab more of like the average Joe's attention and average Jane, and then
but just
UFO community at large, obviously. But if you have a situation where there's like an official proclamation, President Biden on somebody, the UN, and they're like, here's a body, here's a ship. I feel like that would be over the top. Like that, I feel like that's when it would break through that mold of people not giving a shit, and that's when people would be like, "Oh wow."
Yeah, think about that. I feel like that's where Sam was going with it. But Obama is producing a film about Betty and Barney's Hill.
Yeah, I shared that on Twitter a couple days ago. I was like, "What?"
That single tidbit right there. Think about this. That single fact that a former president is producing a film about a UFO abduction. Just that sentence would be bombshell 10 years ago.
Huge.
Absolutely bombshell. But again, nowadays not so much. So
but why are we reacting the way we are now?
Exactly.
Is it because of the slow drip? Because this may be exactly what they wanted. Maybe they wanted us to get to almost like a docile state where we're given actual like kabam information, and we're just like, whoa, well, that's cool, but we kind of already thought that. Like It does soften the blow and make this entire thing easier. And that's what we're seeing happen. Like there's people, 2017 happens and a number of other things occurred. There's footage, blah, blah, blah. And all they can say is, well, what did Kim dress up Northwest in today?
Yeah.
Or, what I mean? Like that type of thing. Or like, what did Kanye do on InfoWars today?
Yeah.
It's like people get caught up in the minutia of social media and the craziness and CGI mustaches, whatnot.
Yeah. Speaking of fucking Henry Cavill, he got dogged, but
Zio told me about that. Like,
yeah,
I was like,
they
what?
Warner Brothers was like, hey, dude, in October, they're like, hey, dude, make an announcement that you're coming back as Superman, and then they hire James Gunn and Peter Safran to reboot the DC universe. And
yeah.
Hey, by the way, you are not Superman anymore. And
it's just like, what?
It's been with DC. It's been a wild ride. And think about this. I'd rather talk about Are We Alone in the Universe than anything to do with movies anymore, because
I'm with you on that one.
That
for
community,
sure.
that community is so fucking toxic.
Oh,
It
hardcore,
makes
dude.
me
Like, I'm a
so
big
sick.
Star Wars fan, and like I would be streaming Battlefront, which is really like what started grabbing me subscribers. And we'd talk Star Wars, the movies were coming out, and like someone would pop up in my chat and be like, "So what'd you think of The Last Jedi?" I'd be like, "The special effects were really cool. Thought it was interesting that they took some risks." And they're like, "So you're racist?" And I'm just like, "What is happening right now? Like, you like the original trilogies? Yeah, they're my favorites. You're racist." And I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
okay."
yep.
I'm like, That's not a real opinion." But movies, I have a huge passion for it. My dad actually went to film school, so that's like in my DNA too. Like I appreciate a good film. I'm really excited for like anything that Christopher Nolan is doing. Like this Oppenheimer movie looks like it's going to be unreal. But it is a toxic environment, and Hollywood is disgusting in
Yes.
certain aspects.
Yeah, very,
Unfortunately,
very,
that's not
very.
everybody and everything, but there's a lot of weird shit going on in Hollywood. A lot,
Yeah,
and it has been since the beginning.
it's like you want to talk about politicized industries, Hollywood. I mean, there's your number one. It's just so cutthroat and backstabby. I'm like, I gotta wash. Think about that. I had to wash my hands clean in the movie community, and then I jumped headfirst into UFOs. Like,
You
like
know a lot for having just
no.
jumped in.
I did not just jump in. I just jumped
Oh,
in.
okay, like fair.
I just jumped in publicly. I've always had this.
So you've always had that research going on, like for yourself at least. That's
Well,
like what
not
happened with me. Is like
yeah,
I was
not
always researching.
I wouldn't say always though. I think my first because the first time I really asked myself this whole thing was after I saw something that I couldn't explain
Mhm.
and then I started like reading books and finding out like then you pose the question. At that time I was like 13, right? So I'm able to have a legitimate conversation with myself like, well, are we alone? No, that doesn't make sense. It couldn't be, right? Like, is God real? I started asking those questions. You start asking
Oh,
yourself, you know, that led me
yeah, I
down a
know.
road to find things out. I don't believe in God, like the God that is, capital.
The Abrahamic God, we'll say,
I don't believe in it, and
the real judgy one.
I do believe in UFOs, and
Right.
then that's where my life has led me. And I mean, I think there's something after. I think there's so many more fascinating ways or so many more fascinating theories and ideology to what happens after we die and all those things that religion is just a little bit too outdated for me. And
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's
yeah,
like it's almost like this very ancient way of trying to understand the mystical, but I do feel that all of the major religions probably have some piece of the puzzle,
yeah,
but
that would make sense.
spiritually and religiously, like for me, I was raised Catholic, but it was it's like my parents, okay, we're going to Sunday school, okay, we're going to church, but it wasn't like, oh, we must go to church every Sunday. And then we got older, stopped going to church, and I was like just unsure, and then I went in a very atheistic direction, and then just certain things occurred, and now I would consider myself like a spiritual agnostic. I don't have all of the answers, but through spiritualism, there are things that resonate with me where I'm like, that seems to make sense. Like,
Yeah.
I believe in consciousness non-locality, and it would explain a lot of things. Like, how would one predict the future? It's like, well, that information is being beamed into our brains from outside of this dimension. Like, I feel like materialism is dying. I do. I actually feel that it's dying, and that there are a lot of much smarter people than I am that will back that up.
Yeah, one of the last
Like
questions.
Hoffman, and like there's a lot of physicists out there that will even tell you like there's a lot more going on here. A lot.
Yeah, with I got to wrap up, but with the
Yep.
the last question I'll really leave you with is, um, is it even worth thinking about without the answer, right? I don't know because, or not. Is it worth thinking about? That's not the way to put it. But to live every day a certain way because this book tells you to, and like it seems so limiting to me.
Yeah,
To
it's limiting.
limiting. And maybe, before, look at all the distractions that we have as a society. It's easy to see that maybe a few hundred years ago, this shit was needed, right?
Maybe, yeah,
it was,
to mold us, us create a moral vertebrae
yeah,
for
like,
us.
hey, by the way, don't fucking steal, don't kill. Like these are all things, these are all good things these are all
That I
ways
live
you
by.
should
I
live.
still live. The 10 Commandments are pretty reasonable, to some degree. Like,
But the whole like
don't
sex
kill
before,
anyone. Yeah,
but
that
when it gets to like sex before marriage, it's like, look at the animal kingdom, you
that
fucking weirdo.
that completely goes against biology. You know what? Have you ever seen The Devil's Advocate?
I think so, yeah.
With Al Pacino, and he goes on that rant. He's like, "Let me tell you about God," and like he starts talking about how like he gives us free will. He's like, taste but don't eat, touch but don't take, like all this stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just like it's in my opinion. Again, if you're a Christian, I mean nothing by this, but for me personally, I feel like the idea of hell was just to keep people in line, and I feel that a lot of the rules that have been created in these religious systems were just control mechanisms. Honestly, like thou shalt not kill. That's a great one. Thou shalt not steal. You
Well,
shouldn't because it's wrong.
thou shalt not murder.
Yeah, especially murder.
No,
It's
it's murder. It's not kill.
it's actually just murder.
Yeah, it's actually just, it's thou shalt not murder, because killing isn't necessarily something like
Like self-defense. Yeah, I guess there's
well, it's not even necessarily
nuance there.
that. It's like, because I mean, we kill animals, right?
Yeah.
That would technically be killing.
Thou
but-
shalt not take the life of another human being in cold blood.
Yeah, that's a very fundamental, like, we should all definitely live by that.
Yeah, because you're
But-
taking away this miracle from another being, and you have no right.
Absolutely.
You just have no right to take that. You're completely altering their conscious experience and potentially shooting them off into another life that they weren't supposed to.
prematurely.
Yeah, prematurely, exactly. So that's wrong. you
Yeah,
know?
and again, like that's even a whole conversation to have.
But I believe in religious freedom, but I also believe that people should really take a hard look at what they believe in and why they believe in it. Like, are you an evangelical Christian that yells and wipes your face with a towel every Sunday because you
What?
felt the word, or is it because your parents told you to feel the word?
What,
You know,
what if
like
they rub a
yeah.
what?
Haven't you ever seen those guys like on like they'll have those like Baptist masses or evangelical where the priest is up there or just like the pastor and he's like Jesus and he's like wiping his face and he's like, like all that. It's like, I get it, man. Like if that's your conviction because you decided it, like I have so much more respect for that than you were raised that way and never broke out of the mold, thought about it, and then came back. Like that's different to me. And again, it's like I will defend anyone's right to believe whatever they want as long as you're not harming others. That's my motto in life. I don't care what you do. You could worship the tree in your backyard. I don't care. But do not bring harm on others.
because
and-
they don't believe
it's-
that your tree is.
Right. Like and people, you know what, another thing people don't talk about, it's like those of you out there that are religious, try not to get so angry about what other people think. If that's your conviction and that's your creed and your faith, do your thing. But like when these people that walk around on the streets like, well, you had sex before marriage and now you're going to hell, and now I have this megaphone and I'm yelling in your face that you're going to hell. Like, don't waste your time with that. Worry about your own soul. You know what I mean? Like don't bother other people with that. If they want to make mistakes and they want to go to hell, let them. You worry about yourself. That's my personal belief. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, that's fine, but don't hurt anyone in the process. That's it.
Yeah.
It's really simple. And I feel
There
like
should
the
be one
UFO
law.
phenomenon is going to radically alter the landscape of religion, and something that people don't really necessarily bring up too often. We're all sitting here busy thinking about how it's going to affect current religion. I feel like it's going to create some new ones.
Yeah, most likely. And listen, the Pope already, like, this was already handled by the Pope, to just get under it. And they basically said all creation is God create.
And we'll
God's-
baptize them if they come down here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what a fucking sight that would be, right?
The gray can't fit his head. Like, ugh. the Palladian's too tall.
Yeah, he's trying to dunk him, but he's like he just keeps slipping,
Damn.
slipping through because it's too oily.
He's 4-dimensional, so he's immaterial, so he can't quite get his hands around. It's so extreme. I guess that's what people were saying, that sometimes the show gets a little goofy, but I feel like it has to happen sometimes.
I was just thinking about that.
It has to happen. Like, listen, man, I'm 4D, you're 3D.
Which
Like,
not working out.
I'll dump it over myself, man. You just do the motion. Like, that's it.
Oh God. But we had 2 hours. We got all the subjects in, man.
Yeah,
Good
man.
job.
This was a good show. I like. This is obviously only my second time here, but dude, this is like, I live for this.
Yeah, and
Conversation.
I thought I was gonna be able to share some news December 1st, but that news got postponed. I want to talk about it so badly because I'm even having conversations in the background now that are just so different to ones I've had before, and it's just amazing. It's really amazing what doors open and what things can do and the people you meet along the way. And all I can say is the UFO community, because I was always part of the community, but never openly. Like,
Yeah.
I guess there was that.
Active.
Yeah, there was that stigma, and I was trying to make my name for myself in movie and TV journalism and stuff. And now I've taken a hard right turn from it. But I've been kind of welcomed with open arms and a feeling as a in my own opinion. So I got to I was emailing Richard Doty the other day. I'm like, the fuck am I doing? Like,
Right. It's weird,
so
right?
weird.
Like Gary Nolan answered a few of my tweets, and I was just like,
yeah, today the
whoa.
first person to like my tweet about Moment of Contact was the director, James Fox. It was just like, oh God. Like, I really want to talk to James, by the way.
I so badly want to just have a conversation with him about like some comments that he's made about, like them possibly walking among us, and like there's things that I know he's kind of like a little shy about saying publicly, and I just want to pry that shit right out of him, man. I just want to try it. I just want to go for it and just be like, look, James, I don't think anything's weird here. Say everything that you want, everything. And I think he's done such hard work. That's the other thing. Like, these documentary filmmakers, as you know, and as I know to some degree, being that I own a digital design company, like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I gotta pay $20 for this movie. Yes, you do, because that person busted their ass to make that documentary.
Yeah.
And James Fox does an amazing job with his work.
At the least, you're putting 6 months to a year into a film. That's
Easy.
over an hour, it's absolute mind-numbing work at the end, and that's why people hire editors, because they just can't do the whole process, because you kill
editing
yourself.
a YouTube video sometimes, like, when the time comes and I have enough income, like, I would probably hire an editor for my videos too, and just concentrate on like writing the content. Like, it just, I do everything, man. Like all of my YouTube content, it's all me. I got Zio that he has access to my account and gives me updates. Like, if I'm at work and I get like a copyright strike, he'll be like, yo, bro. You know what I mean? Like, he feeds it to me a little faster than I can even get to it. But other than that, dude, it's all me, and it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough.
I used to have a team of 5 people.
Ugh.
I have 1 now, and it's me.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
It's me. No, it's me.
I believe
I'm the
that.
one.
I believe it.
When I had a team of 5, it was a much different story, but people don't like this topic, and they didn't want to come on for the ride. So I happily could see the door, because I was coming. I'm not going to sit by idly and watch this story pass me by. No,
it's too important. It's the most important story of our lives, and I feel like we're on the right side of history. And people talk about the day of disclosure, but man, what's it going to be like? Like, if we're on my show or your show or someone else's show, and it's like day after disclosure, Uno, and it's like,
it's fucked up.
What are
right?
we? Yeah, because people are like, are you worried about like being able to create content? It's like, no, you don't understand. That's not what this is about. We're gonna have even more to talk about at that point, because then we're gonna be like, okay, now we know this, so why this? Like,
because I always say, if any of it's true, it could all be true, and all of a sudden, with like the flip of a switch, all of a sudden, the possibilities of mastering the physical world and some other force become like within reach. And that, I mean, you literally change the world overnight with that kind of information. So I mean, what are we a day after disclosure? I mean, I'm talking hours into disclosure. We're having this conversation. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that's D-Day for us. I
It's
mean,
a lot of there's a lot of vindication for people out there that
I also think
probably had
people
their
like
lives
us.
ruined even.
I also think people like us, people like say disclosure happened. I think a lot of people will come to us and be like, "How did you handle this? How did you handle this truth?" And I think for me, it took me very long to be able to handle, like, actually think, shit, we're not the top of the chain. We're not even close to being the top of it. And like, that's a very humbling notion. Very
It's never bothered
humbling.
me, oddly. Like it never really like scared me or like humbled. Yes, but like I know some people live in fear of it, and it's like no, because I already feel like I'm not the top of the chain if I'm out in the woods and staring, face to face with a mountain lion. You know what I mean? Like there's already things in this world that exist that could easily take me out.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's why I don't fear it. If anything, it's fascination. It's like, okay, they're able to do that, which means this is possible, which means that this, and this might be possible, which it's just like now your imagination is on overload and you're like, oh my God, what is actually possible in this universe, in this reality that we haven't quite achieved yet? That's a topic we should really
Things
cover
go
in depth one
from
day. Technology and what the possibilities are, and like some of the things that Bob Lazar talked about. Like imagine being able to bend space time. Imagine being able to
open
create a
a
gravity field. Like it's just holy shit. The
yeah.
things you could do with that, the good you could do with that in the world, and the evil that you could do with it as well. But obviously, I don't want to like focus on that. It's not. It shouldn't be how do we weaponize it. It's how do we benefit from it as a species as a whole.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is the last thing I'll say is I think a lot of people are gonna have to have the conversation with themselves.
Yes.
And actually, whether it's forced or not, or stumbled across, every single person on this is affected by this, and they will have to ask themselves the question on, what does this mean to them, and what does this mean to you individually? And yes, that can be a hard struggle. It can be a little scary at times, but I promise you, it's much better than keeping your head buried in the sand.
You can't ignore facts. Like
Yeah.
if you wake up tomorrow and there's something that you feared and it has come to fruition, like you got to stand in your strength, and you have to find it in you to live with it. Like terrible things happen sometimes. We lose family members, friends. Like there are things that occur that become your reality that really hurt sometimes, that really strike fear in you, but you got to stand tall and be like, I'm not afraid of this. It's
Yep.
out of my control, but you can't ignore it. You can't act like it doesn't exist. This isn't fucking fantasy land. Like you live that way, you're probably going to stress yourself out even more because you're always dodging it, just and trying to stay out of its way. It's better if you just go in head on, learn about it as much as you can, and learn to accept it. Like it's going to be tough for some people out there that are of certain religious denominations, that if it violates what they believe in, they may argue
Reject it
against it.
altogether.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
But
think that would happen for sure.
where can they find you for your other content and all that? All those means.
All right, so obviously I'm Cortex Zero, as the name says, right in this little area here on YouTube. I have plenty of content on the way. If you want to find me on Twitter, I am Atomic Thomas on Twitter, but those O's are zeros. I wish I could go back and just change it to Cortex Zero, but Twitter was like, nah, you can't do that. So, and also, if you are interested in my other work, my digital design company is ZeroDigitalDesigns.com, and my podcast is Podcast Zero on Spotify, relaunching in a couple weeks.
Ooh.
I'm definitely gonna have you guys on, obviously, at some point, and
yeah.
and then I'm gonna start doing my 0 hour show again, which is a lot like what we're doing here. That's like my live just through YouTube show, and yeah, a lot of content on the way, and that's where you can find me. And I do have a TikTok, but I don't really post on there anymore. So it's Cortex Zero on there too. but
Yeah,
don't worry about
don't.
TikTok.
I think everyone should get off TikTok.
I'm done with it, man. It's like it's such a brain drain. You know what I mean?
I really do. I think
Waste
I
so
think
much time on there.
Rogan, and I forget who the guest was, but they just like Rogan got like high one night, and, like went through the policy. You know that thing that you have to sign when you sign up for any of these services, like the initial contract, like
Oh,
not
yeah.
contract, but it is a legal document.
It's
Like
a
you're
user
si-
agreement.
Yeah, the user agreement. So he started going through it, and like they have TikTok monitors your keystrokes, your they gain access to your file and file names. And they say that's for advertising. How the fuck is that for advertising? To know what files are in my
Yeah,
right.
part of it is for advertising, but that's just like that's their excuse for being able to do all of the other invasive things that they're doing. And again, apparently, the Chinese mostly have control over TikTok and are basically able to tap into anybody's
American
information
data.
that way. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
American citizen data, which is a very dangerous thing for anyone
very
to be able to
dangerous.
do.
It's
So
like, it makes me want to delete mine.
I
be
did.
honest,
I actually
know?
did. So
I mean, I got nothing to hide from them, but it's just on principle. It just seems it's like dirty, you know.
Yeah.
It's really odd.
I had a really good time tonight, though.
Yeah, man.
It was nice to take the conversation back to a mostly serious point. So thank you for being on, and this will not be the last time, of course. And if you had some final thoughts, what would it be? Maybe about John Ramirez in this 2027 thing.
I'm going to be monitoring that very closely. I'm not counting any eggs before they hatch. I'm not someone that's like a soothsayer. I don't like making dates. Like I was even reluctant to talk about it, to be honest, because it's just I don't want to fall into like, oh, here's another content creator making dates. Like I'm merely just reporting what's being spoken about. But because it comes from him, my ears have perked up. I will say that.
Yeah, I think that's
For
a
sure.
good way to put it. Is it's definitely a big, tall thing to say, and we shall analyze it for further investment, because I think the coming year and a half is going to, I don't know. I mean, kind of if you look at it, what Lou Elizondo said when he first appeared to I think one of his first appearances was the To the Stars Academy unveiling, and then shortly after that he spoke at the MUFON thing. And in those couple first conversations he had with the public, he said, I think we're going to be having a radically different conversation in a year, and he was right. And then so all these things have been all of what Lou has said is bearing fruit. So I think this is something really to pay attention to.
Yes.
That's my final thought on it, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Take care. Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course.